It was a cold evening. The studio lights were bright. Cameras were ready. The audience was loud and excited. It was time for the live talk show to begin. Karoline Leavitt stood behind the stage, holding her hands tightly. She was nervous. This was her first time on a big TV show. Her heart was beating fast. She wore a plain blue dress, clean but not expensive. Around her neck was a small necklace, silver, simple, and old. It did not shine. It did not sparkle. But it meant everything to her. Nobody knew that. The show was called The Real Room, and it was popular across the country. People loved it because of the jokes, the drama, and the way the hosts spoke without any filter. One of the main hosts, Marcus Dale, was known for making fun of guests. He smiled with charm, but his words often hurt. Karoline took a deep breath and walked on stage. The crowd clapped. The cameras zoomed in. She gave a small smile and sat on the chair across from Marcus and the other host, Jenna. "Welcome, Karoline," Marcus said with his usual wide smile. "First time on TV?" "Yes," she replied softly, her voice calm. "Well, don't worry," Jenna said kindly. "We'll go easy on you." The audience laughed. Karoline smiled politely. They talked for a few minutes. The questions were simple, about her work, her opinions, her daily life. Karoline answered with honesty. She was soft-spoken but clear. She didn't try to impress anyone. She didn't pretend to be something she was not. And then, it happened. Marcus leaned forward and looked closely at her necklace. He pointed at it with a small laugh. "Is that your daughter's necklace?" he said, chuckling. "Looks like something from a toy store." The audience laughed. Karoline looked at him. Her smile disappeared for a second. Her hand touched the necklace gently, but she didn't say anything. Her eyes, though, said a lot. Pain, surprise, but also strength. Jenna gave Marcus a look, trying to change the topic. But Marcus laughed again and added, "Just saying. For a TV guest, you could have worn something a little more grown up." Karoline didn't respond. She simply looked at Marcus, calm, quiet, but her silence was louder than any words. The rest of the show continued, but something had changed. Karoline answered the next questions with short replies. The audience could feel the tension. The fun mood was gone. Jenna tried to bring back the energy, but it didn't work. After the show, Karoline left quietly. She didn't talk to anyone. She didn't cry. But once she was alone in her small apartment, she sat on her bed and held the necklace in her hand. She looked at it closely. It was not shiny, not expensive, but it was full of love. A small silver heart with a tiny name carved on the back. Noah. That was her little brother. Years ago, when Karoline was just 15, her family had gone through a terrible time. Her parents were fighting, money was tight, and Karoline felt like the world was falling apart. She didn't talk to anyone, she didn't smile, she stopped going out. Even school felt heavy. But there was one person who always stayed close, her younger brother Noah. He was only 9 years old, full of energy, full of love. He would sit with her, bring her drawings, sing songs, and try to make her laugh. One day on her birthday, he gave her this necklace. "I made it myself," he had said proudly. "Now you'll always have me with you." She had laughed and hugged him. It was the first time she smiled in weeks. 2 months later, Noah was gone. A sudden accident. A car hit him while he was riding his bike. Karoline's world broke again. But this time, she didn't fall. She couldn't, because now she wore Noah's necklace every day. It gave her strength. It reminded her to live, to smile, and to help others. And now a man had laughed at it. She held the necklace tightly that night. She wasn't angry, but she was hurt. Deeply. The world didn't know her story, Marcus didn't know. The audience didn't know. They only saw an old necklace, not the love behind it. The next morning, Karoline did not speak to the media. She didn't call anyone. But she posted a picture on her social media. A close-up photo of the necklace. No filters, no fancy words, just a short caption. "You don't know the story." People started asking questions. What was the story? Why was she so silent on the show? Why did she post this now? Some fans of the show said she was overreacting. Others said Marcus was rude. But most people were just curious. Who was Karoline Leavitt, and why did she look so heartbroken when someone laughed at a necklace? Back at the studio, Marcus saw the photo too. He rolled his eyes. "It was just a joke," he told his team. "People need to relax." But even he could not ignore the growing reaction online. Karoline had said nothing, but still, everyone was talking about her. That silence, that one quiet moment on the show, was now louder than every joke Marcus had made. And this was just the beginning. Karoline sat in her small kitchen the next morning. The sun was shining outside, but inside, her heart, it still felt dark. She had not slept much. The picture of her necklace was still on her phone screen. The words under it. "You don't know the story." She didn't write more. She didn't need to. Thousands of people had already seen it. Some were angry at Marcus. Some were curious. Many just said, "Why is this necklace so important?" Karoline didn't answer them, because the story was never easy to tell. She looked at the necklace again. Her fingers touched the back, where the name Noah was carved. It had been 10 years, but it still felt like yesterday. Back then, Karoline was just a teenager, quiet, shy, and full of sadness. Her parents were always arguing about money. They were busy with their problems and didn't see Karoline's pain. At school, she had no real friends. She felt invisible. The only person who truly saw her was Noah. He was her little brother, just 9 years old, but he had the heart of a hero. Every day he would knock on her door, holding silly drawings or snacks. Sometimes he would put on a small dance show just to make her laugh. She never asked for help, but Noah gave it anyway. One evening, Karoline was crying quietly in her room. She didn't want to eat, talk, or even move. The world felt heavy. That night, Noah walked in with something in his small hand. A necklace, made from silver, wire, and a tiny metal heart. It wasn't perfect. It had scratches and marks. But it was beautiful in its own way. "I made it for you," he said proudly, his face shining. "Now you'll always have me, even if I'm not around." Karoline had smiled for the first time in weeks. She hugged him tightly and wore the necklace right away. From that day, she never took it off. 2 months later, something happened that changed her life forever. It was a rainy afternoon. Noah had gone out on his bike to visit a friend who lived just 2 streets away. He was careful, as always, but not everyone on the road was. A speeding car, a blind corner, 1 second of mistake, and Noah was gone. Just like that. The news came, like thunder. Karoline's mother screamed. Her father stood frozen. But Karoline, she didn't make a sound. She sat on the floor holding the necklace Noah had made. She didn't cry that day. She couldn't. Days passed, then weeks, then months. The house was silent. Everyone was broken in their own way. But Karoline kept going, not because she was strong, but because she had to be. For Noah, she wore his necklace every day. It became her armor, her reminder, her promise to live fully because he could not. She started speaking in small schools, talking to children who had lost loved ones. She began helping others with grief. Slowly, people started noticing her work. They said her words healed them. But still, she never told the full story. She never spoke Noah's name on stage. Necklace was always there, close to her heart, but the memory was locked inside. Until now. Marcus had laughed at it. On live TV, the necklace that held her brother's last gift. It hurt. Not because she needed people's approval, but because the world judged something so deeply personal without even asking why. Karoline sat on her couch thinking, should she tell the truth now? Was the world ready to hear it? A message popped up on her phone. It was from an old friend she hadn't spoken to in years. I saw the show. I remember Noah. That necklace is not just jewelry. It's a whole story. Maybe you should tell it. Karoline's eyes filled with tears. Not sadness, not anger, just memory. She opened a notebook and began writing. For the first time in 10 years, she wrote Noah's name in full. Noah Leavitt, the boy who saved my life. Outside, the internet was still talking. Her name was trending. People were asking questions, but Karoline didn't care about fame or followers. She only wanted one thing now, to tell Noah's story. Properly. Not as a victim. Not as a sad guest on a talk show. But as a sister who was proud. Proud of a boy who made a necklace out of love and proud to wear it forever. Karoline didn't plan anything. She didn't hire a PR team. She didn't post a long video. She only shared one simple photo, the silver necklace with the tiny heart, and one short line. You don't know the story, but sometimes the smallest things become the loudest voice. Within 24 hours, her photo was everywhere. On Instagram, people shared the picture with their own captions. She didn't deserve that. This is deeper than fashion. Respect people's stories. On Twitter, a new hashtag was trending. The necklace story, some users were angry. That host is a bully. She looked hurt and still stayed calm. Others were curious. What's so special about that necklace? What's the full story? And a few didn't understand. It's just a necklace. Why is everyone so emotional? But no matter what they said, everyone was talking. Meanwhile, Marcus, the host who laughed at Karoline's necklace, stayed quiet. He didn't post anything. He didn't say sorry. He told his team, let it cool down. Internet people forget quickly. But this time, people didn't forget. Clips from the talk show were spreading fast, especially the moment when Marcus laughed and Karoline stayed silent. Her eyes, her expression, it said everything. That silence hit people harder than any speech. One viewer wrote, that look in her eyes, it broke me. I've seen that look on my sister when someone mocked her for wearing our dad's old ring. Another wrote, we all wear something simple that means the world to us. She spoke for many of us, without even speaking. Karoline watched all of this quietly. She sat on her bed scrolling through the messages. Strangers were writing to her. Some said sorry. Some shared their own stories. Some even sent pictures of old rings, bracelets, watches, things they wore. Every day, not because they were pretty, but because they were precious. One message said, this is my grandpa's watch. He gave it to me before he died. People think it's ugly, but it's my strength. Karoline felt something change inside her. For the first time, she didn't feel alone. That evening, she posted again. This time, she added a few words, just a short message. It's not about the necklace. It's about the person behind it. We all carry someone we lost, and sometimes we wear them too. No music, no filter, just truth. That post went viral. News channels picked up the story. Talk show guest responds with silence and breaks. The internet. A few bloggers called Karoline a quiet warrior. One article titled her story, The Necklace That Spoke for Millions. But not everyone praised her. Some critics said she was doing this for attention. Others said, if it was so personal, why wear it on TV? Karoline didn't reply to any of them, because deep inside she knew the truth. She didn't wear the necklace for attention. She wore it because she always did, every single day since Noah left. And nobody, not a TV host, not a stranger, not a critic, could take that away from her. Back at the studio, the show's producers were worried. Ratings were dropping. The comment section was full of angry viewers. People were saying things like, "I'm never watching this again unless they apologize." One producer walked into Marcus's dressing room and said, "Maybe you should talk to her. Maybe. Say sorry." Marcus rolled his eyes. Why? It was a joke. People are too sensitive these days. But even he could feel it. Something was different now. This wasn't just online noise. This was real, and it wasn't going away. Late that night, Karoline received a message from a famous journalist. "Karoline, I've followed your story. Would you like to share the full story on our national show? On your terms. No jokes. Just truth. Millions would listen." Karoline stared at the message. Her heart started racing. This was big, huge, but also scary. She took a deep breath. Then she looked at the necklace. She thought of Noah's laugh, his tiny hands, the day he gave her the silver heart, and she knew her answer. She picked up her phone. She typed slowly, "Yes, I'm ready." Karoline sat alone in her room, phone in hand, staring at the message from the journalist. "Would you like to share your story on your terms?" The offer was real. A national interview. No jokes. No games. Just a quiet studio, one trusted host and millions of viewers waiting to hear her voice. She had said yes. But now fear was growing inside her. She hadn't told Noah's story to the world before. Not like this. Not in front of cameras. Not where people could twist her words. Her heart beat fast. She looked down at her necklace again. The small silver heart that had survived everything. This time, she wasn't wearing it for herself. She was wearing it for everyone who had ever been laughed at for something they loved. The interview was scheduled for Friday night. 3 days. Karoline didn't sleep much. During the day, she kept getting messages from strangers, from friends, even from teachers she hadn't seen in years. One said, "I saw the video, that necklace. It reminded me of my mom's ring. I wear it every day. People don't understand. Thank you for speaking up." Another said, "My daughter wears her brother's cap every time she goes outside. People laugh, but she doesn't care. You gave her courage." Karoline read every word. She didn't reply to all, but she felt them. Each message gave her a little more strength. Still, she was nervous. She had never spoken live. What if her voice shook? What if she cried? What if she couldn't speak at all? Finally, the day came. Friday evening. The studio was quiet and calm, not like the one before with loud lights and fake smiles. This one felt peaceful. The journalist, Maya Jensen, welcomed Karoline with a gentle smile. "No pressure," she said softly. "This is your space. Say only what you feel. Speak only what you want." Karoline nodded. The cameras were ready. The lights turned on. Maya looked at Karoline. "Shall we begin?" Karoline took a deep breath and said, "Yes." The interview started slow. Maya asked her how she was feeling after the talk show incident. Karoline answered honestly. "I felt hurt, but more than that, I felt unseen." Then Maya asked about the necklace. Karoline gently touched the silver heart. "This necklace," she said, "was made by my little brother. His name was Noah." For a moment, Karoline's voice broke. The room went silent. She paused, took a breath, and continued. "He made it for me on my 15th birthday. He said, 'Now, I'll always be with you even when I'm not around.'" Tears filled Maya's eyes. Karoline didn't cry. She smiled softly. "He passed away 2 months later. A road accident. He was only 9. The camera stayed close on her face. The viewers watching at home held their breath. Karoline kept speaking. Not loudly, not dramatically, but honestly. I wore this necklace every day since he left, not because it's beautiful, but because it carries my whole heart. She paused again. When Marcus laughed at it, I didn't feel shame. I felt pain. Because he laughed at something he didn't understand. Maya nodded, staying silent. She didn't interrupt. Karoline went on. We never know what someone is carrying. A ring, a bracelet, an old shirt, even a scent could hold someone's whole story. The live comments on the broadcast started pouring in. I'm crying. She speaks so softly, but it hits so deep. My necklace is my grandma's. I wear it every day. I get it now. I didn't know her before, but now I'll never forget her. At the end of the interview, Maya asked one final question. Karoline, if Marcus is watching this now, do you have anything you want to say to him? Karoline looked into the camera. She didn't look angry. She didn't look bitter. She looked strong. I don't need an apology, but I hope. He learns one thing. When you laugh at something small, you might be laughing at someone's whole world. The studio went completely silent. No music, no applause, just truth. That moment froze the screen. Millions watched, some with tears, some with memories of their own. The interview ended. Karoline stepped outside the studio. It was night. The air was cool. She looked up at the sky and whispered, Did you see it, Noah? I told your story. A soft breeze brushed her face like a quiet answer. That night, her clip was shared all over the world. Her voice, soft, calm, honest, was now echoing across countries. People from different cultures, languages, and ages shared her story. And Marcus. He watched the interview too, alone, silent. He wasn't laughing now. The next morning, the world felt different. Karoline's interview was everywhere, news channels, social media, even radio stations. Her voice, soft and calm, was now in every home, every heart. People didn't just listen. They felt her words. Clips from the show were going viral. You might be laughing at someone's whole world. That line was being quoted again and again. It was printed on posters, shared in stories, used in classroom discussions. Something deep had happened. Something real. In small towns, in big cities, people began sharing their own necklace stories. Photos of old rings, worn watches, faded scarves, broken toys. One woman posted a photo of her father's old army badge. She wrote, People say it's just metal, but it's the last thing I have of him. Thank you, Karoline, for helping me not feel ashamed. A young man posted a photo of his sister's shoes. He wrote, She died in a fire. I kept her shoes. I never told anyone, but today I walked in them for the first time. For her. Karoline saw these messages one by one. She sat quietly, reading, sometimes smiling, sometimes crying, but mostly she just felt connected. That evening, a special news report came out. One guest, one necklace, one story has opened a national conversation on grief, memory, and human connection. Even schools began holding small assemblies. Teachers asked students, What item do you carry that holds a story? Children stood up with pencil boxes, lockets, letters, and toys. They weren't laughed at. They were heard. But while the world was listening, Marcus was quiet. He had watched the full interview. Alone, in his office. At first, he scoffed. It's just emotional stuff. She's playing the sympathy card. But then, he saw something he didn't expect. His own daughter, 12 years old, standing in the hallway. She had been watching, too. Tears in her eyes, she clutched her mom's old scarf, the one she wore every night. Marcus asked. Why are you crying? She said softly. Because you laughed at that woman, and it felt like you were laughing at me too. Marcus didn't say a word. For the first time, he didn't know how to reply. Meanwhile, Karoline was invited to many more shows, podcasts, and events. She said no to most. She didn't want fame. She only wanted to tell Noah's story, once, properly, but one offer felt different. It came from the same studio where Marcus worked. They wanted her back, live, face to face, with Marcus. Not for a fight, but for a moment of truth. Karoline didn't answer right away. She went for a walk, alone, thinking, remembering. At the park, she saw a boy playing with his sister, laughing, chasing, falling, getting up again. She smiled. Then, she looked at the necklace and whispered, "Let's finish what we started, Noah." She called the studio and said, "I'll come, but I'm not coming for drama. I'm coming for peace." The date was set. The world was watching again. Some people wanted a confrontation. Others just wanted closure. Karoline didn't care about either. She only wanted the truth to stay alive. Not loud, just alive. When she entered the studio, the lights felt different. This time, there was no laughter, no loud music, no forced smiles, just 2 chairs and one truth. Marcus stood up as she walked, and he looked different, less confident, more real. He spoke first. "Karoline, I don't know how to begin. I was wrong." Karoline didn't say anything yet. He continued. "I didn't know the story. I didn't even try to ask. I thought I was being funny, but I was being careless." He paused. Then softly, he added, "You showed me what I couldn't see. And I'm sorry." The room was silent. Everyone waited for Karoline to speak. She looked at him, not with anger, but with honesty. "I'm not here to hear the perfect apology," she said. "I'm here to remind everyone it's okay not to understand someone's pain. But it's never okay to laugh at it." Marcus nodded, quietly. The show ended without a big speech, without fireworks, without drama, just 2 people, one who made a mistake, one who turned that mistake into meaning. That moment became the most viewed segment in the show's history. Not because it was loud, but because it was true. Karoline walked out of the studio. This time she didn't feel small. She didn't feel afraid. She felt seen, not as a victim, not as a guest, but as a sister and as a voice. For everyone who carried a story around their neck and never had the chance to explain it. The video of Karoline's second visit to the studio spread like wildfire. Her calm reply, her peaceful strength. Her message, clear and powerful. It touched hearts around the world, but something was still missing. An answer, a real one. Marcus had said sorry on the show. Yes, he admitted his mistake. Yes, but many people watching at home weren't sure. Some called his apology fake. Some said it was just for saving his image. Others said he looked nervous, not truly sorry. The truth? Even Marcus didn't know what he really felt. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept replaying Karoline's words in his head. It's okay not to understand someone's pain, but it's never okay to laugh at it. They hit him harder each time. The next morning, Marcus walked into the same studio, but this time something had changed inside him. He called a meeting with the producers. "I want to do a live episode," he said. "Just me. No jokes, no guests, just the truth." They were shocked. "Why?" he replied. "Because it's time I speak, not as a host, not as a performer, but as a human being who finally learned something." That Friday, the network announced special live episode, Marcus Speaks, no edits, no audience, just truth. The internet exploded again. Some people were curious. Others were ready to judge, but everyone was watching. The screen turned on. Marcus sat alone in a chair. No background music, no laughter, no lights flashing, just him, a table, and silence. He looked straight into the camera. "I've been on TV for 15 years, he began. "I've interviewed hundreds of people. I've made thousands of jokes, but a few weeks ago, I laughed at something I should have respected." He paused, took a deep breath. "And the worst part? I didn't even stop to ask why that necklace mattered." He told the full story. How he mocked Karoline. How the internet reacted. How he stayed, quiet, hoping it would pass. "But it didn't," he said. "Because pain like that doesn't pass. And I realized I've been blind to it for years." Marcus opened a small box on the table. Inside it was a tie clip. Old, faded, scratched. "This," he said, holding it up, "was my father's. He gave it to me before my first job interview. He died a month later. I never told anyone. I never even wore this on air." He looked down, and yet I laughed at someone else's memory while hiding my own. The camera zoomed in, his voice trembled. "I don't want to be the man who makes people feel small to entertain others. I want to be the man who listens, who learns, who leads with respect." He ended the show with one final line. "Karoline, thank you for teaching me with silence. You didn't shame me. You showed me, and I will never forget that." Then, the screen went dark. No music, no clapping, no goodbyes, just truth. The internet exploded again, but this time, it was different. Now, that felt real. Respect to him for showing growth. We all need a moment like this in our lives. Karoline watched the show from home. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just whispered, "That was honest." She touched her necklace, and for the first time in years, she felt peace. The next day, the studio felt different. The same chairs, the same cameras, the same stage. But something had changed. It was quiet now, not because the lights were off, but because the noise was gone. People had watched Marcus's live confession all over the world. They didn't cheer, they didn't shout, they just listened. And in a time where everything moves fast, click, scroll, forget, this silence felt special. It felt real. The producers noticed something strange. For the first time in years, the usual emails weren't about bookings or celebrity gossip. They were letters, real letters, from teachers, from parents, from teenagers, from people who had lost someone and never had the words to say it. One letter said, "Thank you. I showed the clip to my son. He now wears his sister's bracelet without hiding it." Another wrote, "My dad stopped watching your show 5 years ago, but he watched that episode twice." And yet, behind the scenes, there was confusion. The network didn't know what to do next. Should they bring the fun back? Should they return to games and laughter? Or had the show already changed forever? The studio didn't feel like a stage anymore. It felt like a room where truth had been spoken. And once truth enters a room, it's hard to go back to noise. Marcus came to work as usual, but he didn't joke around. He didn't try to act cool. He sat in his office, quietly reading the messages. One note caught his eye. It was from a young girl in India. "My grandma wears a black thread on her wrist. She says it reminds her of her brother. I never understood, until I saw Karoline. Thank you for not laughing anymore." Marcus held the note in his hands for a long time. A meeting was called. The producers sat at the round table. One of them asked, "What do we do now?" Someone said, "Maybe we need more guests like Karoline." Someone else added, "Maybe we need fewer jokes and more listening." The room went quiet, because deep down, they all knew the truth. The show was never going to be the same, and that was okay. Later that week, Karoline received a small package, no name, no return address. Inside, it was a handwritten note. "Thank you for wearing your truth. You helped me wear mine." A quiet viewer. Along with it was a necklace, not shiny, not new, just a small wooden bead tied to a red string. She held it close. and smiled. Karoline didn't return to TV after that. She didn't need to. Her story had been told, but something had started across the world. A quiet movement. Not loud, not viral, but steady. People were sharing their items, the ones full of meaning, not for attention, not for style, but for healing. The show didn't end that month, but it changed. The laughs became lighter. The words became kinder. The hosts began to pause and listen. The lights still shined. But the room had learned how to be silent when needed, and in that silence, the show found its heart. Months passed, seasons changed, the world moved on, as it always does. But something quiet remained. It was in the way people started talking. It was in the way people began listening. It was in the way people looked at the little things, necklaces, rings, bracelets, not as decorations, but as stories, all because of one moment, all because of Karoline's necklace. Karoline didn't go back to TV. She didn't need to. Instead, she began something new, a small project. Nothing fancy, no sponsors, no big name. Just a simple online space called The Necklace Story. It wasn't just about necklaces. It was about meaning. It was about the items we carry that remind us of the people we miss, the love we lost, and the strength we found in silence. People from all over the world began sending their stories. A woman from Brazil sent a photo of a torn diary. A boy from Pakistan shared a drawing his sister made before she passed. An old man from Canada posted a picture of his wife's spoon because she used to feed birds every morning. Each post began the same way. "You don't know the story." Karoline read every one, and she smiled. Not because the stories were happy, but because they were real. She didn't make money from this. She didn't want to. She only wanted one thing: to make sure that no one ever felt ashamed of the things they carried close to their heart. Back at the studio, the old talk show still ran, but it was different now. They had added a new segment, once a week, called The Silent Object. In it, guests shared one personal item. They didn't talk about fame or fashion. They talked about loss, memory, and love. And every time someone finished their story, the room went still. No clapping, no jokes, just peace. Marcus stayed on the show, but he never went back to his old self. He became softer, slower, more aware, and one night, during a live show, he wore a tie clip on his jacket, his father's. He looked at the camera and said, "I used to laugh at things I didn't understand. Now I choose to listen, because silence is sometimes the loudest truth." Karoline watched that episode at home, alone, with a warm cup of tea in her hands. She touched her necklace gently, Noah's necklace, the one that had started everything. She whispered, "We did it, little brother." She didn't want fame. She didn't want praise. She only wanted the world to understand. A necklace is not just metal. A ring is not just gold. A toy is not just plastic. They are stories. They are people. They are love, made visible, and long after the world forgot names and faces, long after the trend passed, one thing remained: a simple silver heart hanging around a quiet woman's neck, still speaking, still healing, still reminding millions. You never know what someone is carrying. So be kind, always.